Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vladziu Valentino Liberace. Vladziu, W-L-A-D-Z-I-U. My mother liked the name when she saw it on the doctor's eye chart. It's Polish for Walter. My friends call me Lee. You can call me Lee. Well, strap in, friends, 'cause here we go. I wonder if any of you are old enough to remember the boogie woogie craze. Liberace was a thorough entertainer, and he wanted people to laugh, and he wanted people to cry, and he wanted to have this complete sensual experience.
Liberace is a play about Liberace, a sampling of his life and his music, and digging a little deeper into the biography that most people might not be aware of. The play itself explores issues of identity and sort of the masks that we wear on a day-to-day basis. And Liberace had a sort of the biggest, most expensive mask anyone in the history of show business ever did. You know, this character that we associate with the Liberace in our mind, the feathers and sequins and the cloaks and capes, was to him in many ways a disguise to allow him to go out and perform every evening, to share the music that he really loved with his audience. That boogie woogie always takes me back to my youth during the Depression. Boogie woogie, Tin Pan Alley, and ragtime. We start with him as a little kid growing up in West Allis, Wisconsin in the early 1920s. All through his formative years, his time at the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music, learning to play, the struggle he had to decide whether he wanted to be a classical pianist or just an entertainer, his rise to fame throughout the 40s and early 50s, and then his fall and his rise back, and then again, ultimate subsequent fall with his death in the 80s.
All done in front of the candelabra. This is not a backstage story. He spent his life in front of audiences. It was sort of a creation, this Mr. Showmanship that we see. It was his own creation. So the trick of this play is how do we tell the truest story we can out of the mouth of somebody whose idea of truth was layers and layers of artifice. Mr. Showmanship. Laugh at yourself before they can laugh at you, right? You know, this is what I wore to my last command performance for Queen Elizabeth. And would you believe it? I was the only one there with one like it. Jack Forbes Wilson is Liberace. I mean, he's perfect. He's a local artist here in Milwaukee. We've worked with Jack here at Milwaukee Repertory Theater a number of times. This play was first done 4 years ago. I thought Liberace was a pretty good piano player, and I didn't know if I could pull that off. And then after I said yes, I realized what a really phenomenal piano player Liberace was, so I had to start practicing. So I was involved in choosing a lot of the music and finding things that he did that I liked, that I think would still be popular today, and that I thought I could pull off. To me, there wasn't any difference between Rachmaninoff and ragtime. Music was music, and I loved all of it. So Jack's able to blend this endless volume of text I've given him. I mean, he says more words than Hamlet in this play, with some really ferocious musicianship. It's just a great evening of music inside a great story, but Jack was sort of the ultimate no-brainer to do the role. Down in a meadow, in a little bitty pool, swam 3 little fishies and a mama fishy too. Sing-along. You all know the words. He was a great piano player, but I don't think that that's what sold out Radio City Music Hall 3 years in a row. I think it was his warmth and generous spirit that somehow got over those footlights and reached those devoted fans of his. I think he needed that feedback from the audience his whole life. That's a nice little song. His costumes developed from those early performances where he was working larger and larger audiences and wanted to be seen. And he was not afraid to just keep going. My friends in the bowl went nuts over the mix of styles. He could go as far as he wanted to go, mainly because there was always a twinkle in his eye. It was always a sort of a joke, and it was impossible to laugh at him because he was laughing way before any of the critics were. We started out with capes, but then Elvis went to capes, so we had to lengthen ours to cloaks, and that led to robes. I know. He always aimed for this elegant Hollywood image, so he always wore tails or a tux. And there's one last piece. I saw it in a movie about my favorite composer, Chopin. In one scene, he didn't have enough light to play, so a cute little maid put one of these right on his piano. I thought it looked pretty classy, so I started using it on those supper club tours, and wouldn't you know, it became my trademark. Nice, huh? By the time of my 35th birthday in 1954, I was the biggest star in America. Between my tour dates, endorsements, TV residuals, and record royalties, I pulled in more than $1 million that year playing the piano. People really like this story. For all the good and for all the bad, he's sort of the embodiment of what we used to call the American dream. He came from humble Milwaukee origins, a working class family in this working class immigrant neighborhood of West Dallas, and he worked and he created this thing for himself. And so I think there is this appeal of the self-made American who went to being the highest paid entertainer in the world at various times in his life.
I hope that audiences walk out with a greater appreciation for who he was, what he struggled with in his life, and the real success that he had to find a way to execute his art and to share the music that he loved with people. If we're willing to honor and celebrate ourselves for who we are as individuals, that the world becomes a richer, more interesting place as a result.